On one side of the courtroom, while he sat on the other side. Between them were two advocates, a stack of affidavits, and years of silence. She sat with her arms crossed, whilst he looked straight at the floor. This is an exact scene that I've seen hundreds of times in the courtroom. But this time, I wasn't looking at them as an advocate. I was looking at them as a Bharatanatyam dancer. Let me introduce myself. I'm Charmaine and Lazarus, and I have lived between these two worlds all my life. For 4 decades, I have been learning, practicing, and teaching Bharatanatyam, an art form that has been there since over 2,000 years, which dwells into human emotions, divinity, spirituality, and a spectrum of relationships. On the other hand, from the last 2 decades, I have been a family court legal practitioner, wherein I have sat across couples in their most broken moments, navigating through property divisions, child custody, and so on. In one once was a marriage. For many years, I kept both these worlds apart. But soon I realized they were talking to each other. One had answers that the other so badly needed. Now, what is Bharatanatyam to me? Bharatanatyam is not just entertainment. It is not something woven in silk and gold. It is a dance which is like a map of human emotions which goes through in a relationship. And this study has been done since so many years by scholars, poets, and artists. Now let me explain to you how we correlate Bharatanatyam with what I see in the courtrooms. To start with, Bharatanatyam has got a book by the name of Natya Shastra, which is a reference book which is used by most classical dancers. Now, in one of the chapters, we have what we call as the Ashtanayika. Ashta means many, and Naika means a woman. Now, in those 8 emotions which we see in the Ashtanayika, 2 of them stand out. And in those 2 of them, I see so vividly, continuously, repeatedly in the courtroom. Let me explain to you how I see it. The first being Virahot Kantita. I know it's a Sanskrit word, but let me explain to you how I see it. Virahot Kantita is of a woman who has been separated by her husband. Now, that separation, she's yearning for him. But at the same time, in that yearning, there is hope. And as time passes, that hope turns to despair. On the other hand, I have Kalahantarita. Kalahantarita is of a woman who has fought with her husband. Now, in that argument, she has said a lot of angry words, and because of which, the husband walks away. Now, after the storm, there's a silence. And what happens? She's weighed down by those angry words. There is repentance, but she doesn't practice repentance because somewhere she believes that whatever she has uttered, there is some truth to it. But at the same time, she hopes that her husband comes back. Now, taking these 2 emotions, I will bring it into the courtroom and I'll explain to you what I see. Like in the Virahot Kantita, where I see a woman or a wife, and she tells me, my husband has not looked at me since so many years, and I have stopped speaking because somewhere no one is listening. Now, all that neglect, all that silence has accumulated into affidavits and submitted to the court. On the other hand, I have Kalahantarita, the other type of a woman. wherein both husband and wife are arguing, but they are not talking also. And yet, they are not done with each other, because each of them is waiting for the other to say, I'm sorry, let's find our way back. And in that time, there's a lapse, there is silence. And before you know it, it's too late, they land up at the lawyer's office. Because somewhere, no one has taught them the language of emotion. Our times have progressed. We've all marched ahead. Women are getting highly educated. They're getting professionally engaged. And they're getting financially very powerful. But when you go back in the olden times, what did you see? You used to see a young couple staying with generations of members within the same household. So whenever that couple would have issues, arguments, the older generation would immediately come in, intervene, guide them, mentor them, and keep the family together. Today, what we have nuclear homes, where the couples are staying together. Two working individuals, one household. They work the entire day, they're exhausted, they come back to the home with nothing to give or say to each other. And what happens? We have financial and materialistic gains, but the language of emotion hasn't been able to keep up. The first thing that happens and the first casualty that takes place is that the lack of communication takes place between these two couples. And slowly there's a loss of patience. And over a time, the ability to understand each other emotionally just goes away. Now, when there is a child into that household, what happens to that child? That child is observing everything and is also absorbing all of it. There are slammed doors, cold meals, unspoken conversations. That child is absorbing all of it, manifesting it, and taking it into his adulthood. Now let me start with Bharatanatyam, because how did it come about? A lot of people do not know. Bharatanatyam was started by the Devdasi community of women. These women would devote themselves to spirituality, and they would stay in the temples. They would sing and dance and storytell about the gods and goddesses. And then we had the British colonial era. What happened during that time? Bharatanatyam was stigmatized, and it was abolished. So Bharatanatyam went through the dark ages. And over time, Bharatanatyam sustained. It survived and was restored back into the temples and then finally onto the stage. So likewise, I say, there are relationships just like Bharatanatyam went through the dark ages. There are relationships which have gone through its own trials and tribulations, their own testing times, wherein both the partners have stuck onto each other and been there with each other. Some relations do come to an end. We see it all the time. But there is dignity in that too. Someone asked me a long time back, how would you define an ideal relationship? And my answer to them was so clear. It's not about one partner leading and the other following. Neither is it about one partner being the sun and the other partner orbiting around that. It's about being like a duet, what we see on the stage on a Bharatanatyam performance. Like, for example, a duet between the percussionist and the dancer, or between two dancers of probably two different forms altogether. Now, in that scenario, there is no competition between both the partners. They are there, they are same, they're equal. There's neither diminishing, neither there is dominance, because they're both in rhythm with each other and they are in balance with each other. And that's so important in any kind of relationship. For me, Bharatanatyam has always been an instruction manual to human relationships, wherein each emotion is understood, studied, addressed, and named. Each emotion has a name, and no emotion can be treated as a weakness. Because sometimes we consider that if a conflict is there in a relationship, it is an end. No, I would say there cannot be an end until and unless that partner works towards a balance. And that balance means, like for example, between an individual and partnership, or between speaking and listening, or through expression and restraint. So the most profound relationship is when there is a harmonious balance between both of them. They understand each other, they respect each other, they're there for each other, and they are in complete rhythm with each other. When I walk down into the courtrooms and I see marriages collapsing, by the way, our family courts are really getting overwhelmed. And I look at these couples and I think to myself, would it make a difference if they learned the language of feeling? If they could keep their differences to the side and look within themselves and say, yes, I'm imperfect, but so are you. But despite of which, we are willing to make a go for this relationship, to work towards it. And that child, if there is a child in that marriage, watching from a distance would see two individuals trying so hard to keep that relationship going. What a beautiful understanding there would be, and so beautiful. Because no relationship is perfect, but it takes two people to understand, respect, be there for each other. Though it may be in contrast, it does not matter, because they are not in competition with each other, but they are very much in there, and they are in rhythm with each other. On a concluding note, I would say one thing. The courtroom has taught me what happens to two people when they lose the language of emotion. At the same time, Bharatanatyam has taught me one more thing: what happens when they find it. Thank you.